Hello and welcome to a very special episode of the Deceptive Reality podcast. My name is Nick, and with me is my psychic friend I like to call Baller Bert.
Baller Bert. Listen,
Yeah,
I've been balling now.
Yeah, see, that was an easy one,
Since
right?
I got this psychic hotline going.
Yeah, I know, right?
The best part of y'all coming back to this one, if you listen to the end of the last one, you paid us $19.95 then, and you're paying us $19.95 again, because I'm about to tell you what your future's gonna hold, because we've already been there. We time travel, basically.
Fourth dimension.
This is basically time travel. We broke the fourth dimension on this bad boy.
That'll make a lot more sense soon.
Time is actually the fourth dimension.
I think it is.
Is the fourth dimension time?
I think so.
Is that right?
I believe. Hold on.
There's probably like some scientists people out there, or really smart people. It's like, these people are idiots. It's like the fifth dimension or something like that.
You know, this is a more complicated subject than I think I should be looking up right now, but we'll look into that.
We'll look into it. But listen, this, we told you in part one, if you was in part one, this one has some humdingers. Now, if you've not seen part one, let me tell you, you're going to be very confused coming into this battle.
Oh, yeah.
And as much as I like to give a recap of part one, it's not going to do justice. If you've not seen part one, go back and see part one first. Please don't watch this one without seeing part one.
Yeah.
You're going to be super confused.
Yeah, these two string together in a really cohesive story that's quite important. So if you want the full story, you need both. I hate to push that kind of thing on you, but there you go.
Me too. Usually it's like, hey, if you listen to part two, cool. If you go back and listen to part one, cool. It doesn't really matter what order you listen.
Yeah.
I would always listen to part one first if it was me, but some people don't. Hey, to each their own. This one I feel like you're going to walk into, you're going to be like, what in the world are they talking about? This one was diverse. And I feel like we had epiphanies in part one, and we had a lot of epiphanies in part two.
Oh, yeah. I think you need it all. I mean, we can't force you, but strong recommendation.
Strong recommendation. But obviously, it's been a week. You've forgotten some stuff. Let's stop talking about it. Let's be about it. Check this out.
Despite being closed in 1981, Camp Heroes off-limit zones, shielded by chain link, silent alarms, and barbed wire, fuel an enduring fascination, allegedly concealing a maze-like subterranean laboratory. Join us as we investigate the stories of time travel, human experiments, extra-dimensional beings, and psychic warfare that inspired Netflix's hit Stranger Things and has earned Camp Hero the title of the East Coast's Area 51.
Okay, so listen. I didn't know what it was talking about until about 20 seconds in. And I'm like,
I was watching you closely. Yeah, I was watching you closely. And we're in an age where it's a lot harder to keep a secret. Like,
oh, for sure.
There was a time you could put something on a computer and there was just literally no chance of anyone ever finding it there unless they sat down in front of it.
Correct.
But now everything's connected. Everything. Correct. Like, I've heard there's something at the CIA, and I don't know if this is true or not, where if you take your cell phone in, it will put your contacts and all kinds of information from your cell phone up on a big display screen, so that you know when you're entering the building that you are monitored. Someone can correct me. That's what I've heard. I'm
never going into the CIA building with my cell phone.
Yeah, I think they want you to turn it in when you go there. But I don't know why people would go there. Like, the average person doesn't have any business there, would they?
I wouldn't think so.
No, I wouldn't think so either.
I've had moments where I've talked to people that are within those kinds of organizations. And if you ever want to see me sweat, let me talk to one of those kind of people.
Yeah.
And they're always so nice. They're always such nice people. And then I go, but I know what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, nope.
Well, they're masters of deception. They're going to seem like they're great on the surface, but you don't know what they're doing at work.
For sure. They're deceptive.
Like, not my current job, but in the past, I've, not anything big, but feel like I've had to compromise my personal morals at work, do things that I wouldn't do in the normal world. Now,
I've been waiting for this my whole life, Nick. I knew
this is a spin-off, new show starting up soon.
Oh man.
But
this is interesting.
Yeah.
So they talk about dreaming.
It's more about,
was there dreamings in
it's
this
more
thing?
about
is that what the upside
splitting
down
in
is?
two realities and being part in each.
Oh, I
Yeah.
got okay, like kind of like the upside down.
Yeah.
I got you. I understand what you're saying.
Where you can
I got
exist
you.
in both.
Oh, you know what? I never thought about this. In I guess technically that did happen in Stranger Things also.
Yeah.
Because like their body would still be there, but Vecna would have them in a different area.
Exactly.
It was the same place, but a different dimension.
Yeah, Vecna was in both, sort of like a physical in one and a,
yes.
I don't know, astral body in the other, for lack of better terms.
Yes.
So,
which I know you played this in Dead by Daylight.
Mhm.
They used to have the Hawkins map.
yep, of course. Yeah.
And it was the same map, but it almost felt like it was in the upside down. Is
Mhm.
almost what it felt like. It had a lot of upside down like features.
Yeah. And
It's crazy.
yeah, so you predicted what's coming up a little later. It's not even in the next segment, so you did a good psychic job.
It was
there.
not coincidence either. Perfect. I like where you're going with this.
Yeah. So that's documented fact. That's real. I'm sure if anyone's seen some of our other episodes, you'll know why I said the F word in front of the moon.
Yes.
So
Converting
we
people.
we really profited from importing these 1,500 pretty evil people into the country. But
There's always a but.
what's alleged is we didn't wait till the war was over. What they alleged is while the war was going on, we were so afraid, and when I say we, I mean, the powers that be. They were really afraid of this research that they were doing it because they had spies and they were finding out that the Germans and Hitler were pumping massive amounts of resources and money into this research. And that's stuff that could have better gone to actually fighting a war. So they figured there's something to this. And they were getting claims from scientists that they were contacting and stuff, that they were really making headway in extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional quantum physics, like piercing the veil between these realities and stuff. So they kidnapped these scientists right out from these labs, is what people say, and said, you're going to work at this facility. And if you don't, well, I hope you've lived quite a while. It's pretty good. You're done.
You're donezo.
The year is 1984. Nichols gets a call from a friend urging him to return to Montauk Point. The friend had heard many times about Nichols' research and the dead end that he'd met at Camp Hero. When Nichols returns, he finds most areas of the base completely abandoned. Fire extinguishers were on the floors and papers were scattered about. This is not the way the military normally leaves a base. Very strange. Nichols explored the areas he could get to and found some high-voltage equipment had been abandoned as well. Even more strange. He begins to contact friends he made in the defense sector to see if he can purchase the equipment. After a few months, he is finally told that there appears to be no current owner, and it could be considered as abandoned if he wants it. Nichols, along with his friend Brian, return to Camp Hero to retrieve the equipment, but this time are surprised to meet someone already there. The man tells them that he's homeless and had been living in the base ever since it was abandoned. The man tells an unbelievable tale of why the base was abandoned in such a hurry. Allegedly, an experiment had gone very wrong. He spoke about a big beast appearing and frightening everyone away. After the accident, he had gone AWOL, which may have saved him from whatever happened to his co-workers. None of them a week later had any memory of the event. Perhaps even more perplexing was that he was very familiar with Nichols. and swore that he should know all of this already. Not only did the man claim to know Nichols, but claimed he was his boss on the Montauk Project and had worked there for years before the incident, in Nichols' own words. Of course, I thought it was pure nonsense. I didn't know then that there was any truth to his story. This was just the beginning of my discovery that the Montauk Project was real. He then left and found his friend Brian, who was also anxious to leave after feeling very strange vibrations. After this, Nicholses would visit the site and nearby towns frequently. Tales of snow in August, former colleagues remembering him working there. Strange behaviors and disappearances all began to add up. With the help of his friends, both psychic and scientific, Nichols came to believe that he had lived split into 2 timelines, accounting for his lack of memories. As time passed, however, the memories started to return. Nichols self-published a book of his findings in 1992, and thus began a larger narrative linking many smaller experiences and events to reveal a larger, more sinister tapestry. Many more would then come forward.
Wait, is this the book you said you had, Nick?
Yes. I have it available for you to read in the drive, and it has so much more in it than I've included here.
You know what this reminds me of? This segment?
What?
In Stranger Things,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like if you would have gave the beginning of that show an extra year later, like if they did a flashback to 1 year later.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of, because if you remember, it opens up to that guy running and he runs into that elevator.
Right.
That, at least when you get to Hawkins. I can't remember if that's the first scene or if that's when it goes to Hawkins. So maybe there was a first scene and then it goes to Hawkins. I can't remember. It's been years since you know what? I think
it's first scene and then you go to Hawkins. That's why I seem to remember.
Yeah, you're probably right on that. I really need to go back and watch this now. I feel like I need to. To keep
well, you've got plenty of time before you need to recap it for the next season. So
exactly.
But this is pretty wild. Like,
because he talked about the beast coming out.
Yeah. I have some context on that I couldn't include, because you notice that segment was really long. There was a lot of stuff in there. So one of the experiments they did, and this ties back to what you had theorized earlier that really surprised me, is there's 2 things. One, they somehow through these experiments split people into separate timelines. So while Nichols was working as a defense contractor, another version of Nichols simultaneously was working secretly in this base as a project supervisor. And it's not hard to imagine that he got tapped because he was in the defense sector, and they split a timeline and put half one of him to work there, and one of them stayed at the defense contractor. So that's one thing. But how the beast came to be, the experiment that went really wrong, is they were having people go through sleep experiments into their subconscious, and the beast was pulled back into our reality when they ended the experiment improperly. So this was a creature from the extra dimensional that they accidentally pulled into our realm.
Through
that's
a portal?
The context.
Like I guess that's what I don't understand. How would it come here?
Well, so they did a lot of experiments and there was portals and stuff, but these portals could go into people's subconscious that was operating when they were sleeping, or when they were, like you said, how you can astral project in your dreams. Apparently they could create portals into the realm that you enter in your dreams. But if they brought you out improperly, it could bring these creatures from this other realm as well. And that's what ended that part of the base.
What if, casting this line out a little bit, we'll pull myself in. What if, when we sleep, thinking here. Bear with me. I'm trying to figure out how I'm really falling towards this being simulation. Because what if when we sleep, kind of like computer code, right? Who's to say that we can't dip into almost like we look at it like dimensions, but it's almost like it's different programming sequences.
Right.
Because the part that I would have an issue with from my very small mind, I can understand how we can open a portal for ourselves, but how would we pull something through our portal? Like when we talk about ghosts and spirits and demons and UFOs even,
right?
There's typically a portal of some sort, or like a gate. Some people call it a gateway. There's that gateway that they can enter. But I've never heard of another case where someone's sleeping and they pull, like that almost sounds like Freddy Krueger to a degree.
Well, that's what I was going to bring up. But so allegedly what happened in this experiment, and I know I'm using that word a lot because I want to present things as people have said them, but I don't want people to necessarily say I'm giving this as a fact. But what they would do is they had these people that they were experimenting on, and they would train these people to sort of like in their sleep would open a rift. That then normally that's what we, under your theory there and under their theory too, I guess, they could pass into this alternate dimension themselves. However, what one of the experiments is at the moment that they make this rift, they could make a portal for others to also pass through this rip.
That's interesting. The way I almost look at like a dream sequence to a degree, the way that, and this is probably the most simplistic way I can put it. Like if you ever been to like Disney World or Disneyland or someplace like that. So you've got the ride, you've got outside the ride, and then you've got the line.
Right.
And a lot of times, like if you go to Disney World, Disneyland, whatever it is, they add some type of interaction when you're in line to make it kind of feasible, right?
Yeah.
I almost looked of like our waking state being the outside of like an amusement ride. REM being the equivalent of being on the ride.
Right.
And like that beginning set, they call it light sleep and stuff like that, almost be like getting into the line, but still having some interaction, which is why typically that's when we got the twitch. That twitch means our brain's not quite shut off yet, which is also where sleep paralysis typically falls into. But I feel like it's not until you're in that REM when that other part of your brain kicks on.
Yeah.
Where you can move your limbs to where you're if I don't know, that's very weird. I wonder because I always look at, this is just me. I'm sure no one else has ever said this. This is just my brain thinking. I always thought of humans being on the bottom end dimension. I've heard a lot of people state that, but I've always looked at ghosts or spirits or residual energy or whatever it may be as being a different dimension, but one level up, so they can see ours and they can see us.
Right.
And I hear it all the time, and it really torques me off because I'm like, this is such a, I'm not going to say that because someone's going to get offended. People always say, why would a ghost stay in a crappy old house? Who's to say in their dimension that house is crappy?
Well, they've often said that the house is as it was for them. And that's why, the floors were higher, so that's why you sometimes think they're floating. Or you see a ghost with a head cut off, that's because the roofs used to be lower or something like that, right?
Yes.
So I wouldn't think to them it would appear crappy at all.
Or even, right, if you think about it, let's use, for example, in their dimension, it'd be like, shoot. The Others, is that what I'm thinking of? That ghost movie with Michelle Pfeiffer? Is that what it's called? The Others?
I know The Others. I'm not sure. I don't remember who was in it, but
it was the one where it was the woman and the two kids and the house was haunted. And then there's at the end, they figure out that, well, I don't want to kill another movie, but.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I don't know if that's the name of it. It might be the others. I don't know what it is. It's one of the two. Anyway. But to them, their world is all of our crap is moving. What if you're in the ghost realm, ghost world?
Right.
And then we do something on our side. And now, like, we think of poltergeist activity. They're like,
right.
I sure wish they would stop moving that freaking pan. I'm sick of putting this pan where it belongs. Well,
I mean, could we be the ghost to them? Maybe they're not aware that we're living and they think they're the living ones. And
correct. Or they understand, right? Because I feel like there's some intelligent hauntings where they truly understand.
Right.
But I feel like they get annoyed.
Yeah.
It's like, I hear this all the time, especially when I'm researching locations or even to a degree like the one we're going to cover next week, which is in your area, or not us, but I'm going to cover next week that's in your area. A lot of times when you see an apparition or whatever it is, there's typically a smell associated with it. Mm-hmm. And I always think to myself, what if, again, if we're opening that parallel to where we can open whatever that dimension is, or they're opening ours, one of the two. Mm-hmm. What if we're getting that smell of whatever's coming from their dimension? Because again,
could be
simulation theory. If you think about it, if that's just a coding issue and we're falling into different coding issues,
right,
there would be certain things from the element that would transfer. It wouldn't just be one thing. There'd be multiple things. It's like, I did this, what was it? Sus furnaces. What was the name of that? Doesn't matter. There was this furnace. And there was a guy, I did this podcast forever ago. It was when I was doing audio only.
Right.
And one of the things that they reported was whenever there was a ghost, quote unquote, or entity in this one section, they would always see the bolts moving.
Right.
And on top of that, they would always smell what smelled like diesel fuel. But this part of the building that used to be the furnace was shut down and was now part of the museum.
Oh, okay.
So there's no bolts there, but the thing they would typically, right before something would happen, they would hear a bolt hit the ground.
Right.
That's how they would associate something's about to happen. Who's to say on their side, they're not just going to work every single day as they see it. And like they drop a bolt or something like that. And then somehow that just opens up those I don't know. It's a very curious thing. It makes me oftentimes wonder. And I've heard two scientists say it the other day. I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson say it the other day. Even he leans towards the fact that we potentially could be living in a simulation.
Yeah, he said that a number of times.
Yeah. And it's very curious. And I heard someone say it the other day, well, don't you get in trouble because you're supposed to be a religious guy. Don't you get in trouble with these theories? Like, isn't that how did this person put it? Isn't that sacrilegious? And I said, I'm not saying that Jesus doesn't exist. I'm not saying that the Bible doesn't exist. I'm not saying that any of those things do or do not exist.
Right.
What I'm saying is the methodology of how it all came to be is simulation. It still fits. To us, that's what happened.
I mean, they could still be the initial cause anyway. So
but it's just part of that narrative thought process or coding, whatever it is. I mean, we don't understand it. It's an interesting theory, though.
Now, how I picture this is there's some kind of passage. Like there's at one point where you're going from one, I'm going to start using dimension, to another, where you're at a certain stage, you're in one dimension. At a certain stage, you're half and half, and then you've passed through sort of this barrier, right? So it's almost like if you're going to your house and you open the door and you're going to slip in, but someone runs up behind you, and before you can close the door, they grab on the door, pull it open, and run in with you, right? That's what I'm sort of picturing is going on in this, that there is the moment, they're trying to calculate the moment that this person passes into this other dimension, and somehow locking on to that and creating a more manifested portal that things might be able to pass through. That's what I'm picturing. And I kind of want to relate it to something that I didn't mention in this, the Philadelphia experiment, which I think you're super familiar with.
Yes.
Where I think part of that, because these are tangentially related, some of the same people involved in these things were working on separate things. But I think, and there's a lot of theories on this, that moved through another dimension and then back into ours. And I think that's how, I think these things are somehow related. Like there's a point where we can pierce the veil, and we tried pushing things through and bringing them back, but we're not really good at it. Because I think in that one, people appeared halfway through halls and that kind of thing. And I think the same way that we can pass things through and bring them back, something else could piggyback with that. And I think that's the scenario that brought something back from this other realm.
But do you know where I get lost with that?
Where? I mean, it's crazy.
Oh, for sure.
So I can understand people getting
everything
lost.
We talk about is crazy, Nick.
Yeah.
This is what we do. We talk
like,
about crazy things.
This is real nutty cuckoo, so I can understand if there's a part that's throwing you on that.
I don't know that it's throwing me. I think it's more the fact that I have a different concept and idea about what, like, we've never really talked about this, but this is the way I've always thought of it. I believe when someone gets possessed, that is a demon coming from one dimension into our dimension, but it has to have a host.
Right.
If we're bringing something from another dimension, they would have to be a host. They'd be inside the person, is the way my brain thinks. And I think that's where I'm getting stuck.
I think under normal conditions, yeah. Because the only thing that's passing through is the person. So the thing would have to latch onto the person as a host. So I think that makes sense what you're saying there. But I think what they're proposing is not only the person is passing through the barrier, that they're opening the barrier itself and making a separate portal.
I got to write something down. It's unrelated.
Okay.
But
unrelated. I feel like it's related.
Probably not.
Yeah, and keep in mind this is all theories.
Yeah. I mean, and again, we can talk about some of this. I don't think it's gonna fit. I mean, I guess it could fit. When we talk about poltergeist activity or demon related, and this all came to me when we was talking about all this. The one thing that almost always happens, and I find this interesting now since I'm thinking about it, which does fit to what you're talking about. When we talk about all this stuff that happens, there's always we call it a checklist, a thing that always happens. There's typically the knocks and the bangs and the scratches, and the way that Ed Warren would put it is there's always 3 cycles every possession.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about that before. Yep.
Yeah. Infestation, oppression, and then infestation, oppression, and then the possession.
Yeah.
Oppression, then oppression, possession.
Right.
What if and I'm going to try to piece this together later. I'm not going to try to piece it together here. I have that spark and I'm like, I'm going to lose it if I don't write it. I do this at nighttime sometimes. I'll have an epiphany, and then I take myself, I got the little pen, I write it down on myself, and I come back to it later, and then I continue that thought process.
Nice.
What if, because there's almost always children related in some facet. And we always say, why is there children, and why do they start with the children? Or like if we look at the Bell Witch, it happened with the Bell Witch also, where it started with the child, but then it went to the wife for a minute. And I read something the other day that fell back into this, which was literally, it was literally a case where it was talking about, and the woman was really smart. She's like a psychic medium also. She goes, when we look at our hand is just a series of atoms and molecules and whatever.
Right.
But one thing that's always in common with every single person and every single thing is every single thought process that we have goes out into the world much like a radio wave.
Right. Which we've talked a lot about radio waves already in this.
Yes. Even in this, right? This is, it's weird. My brain casts out and then I start pulling stuff in.
Yeah. Well, you've done something else that you don't realize you're done yet, but I'm going to let you finish before I tell you.
Sweet. What if these demons, what they're trying to do is because when you, I learned something a long time ago, when you have fear, it opens up a different part of your brain that manifests a chemical reaction. What if when the initial start of these things, the scratches, the bangs, and the knocks, that's the first attempt at infestation and trying to come into that dimension.
Right.
Into our dimension,
like
should I say.
Breaking at the barrier, scratching at the barrier.
Similar, yes.
Interesting.
Because I did a podcast the other day on David Glatzel. That's the Devil Made Me Do It guy. That was the guy that, and I found that interesting. There was an EVP where the kid, when he was under possession, looked at Arnie and said, "You're going to commit a crime with a knife." And then like 2 years later, he killed the landlord with a knife. What if they start with infestation? That's them trying to break into our dimension. And then they use the kids to open up a portal inside their brain using that fear.
Right.
Whatever that chemical's doing in that fear to open some sort of even a portal, but then that's how they get into them for the possession. So the oppression causes the fear. And much like when we talked about the Bell case, they started with the child, but their target was John Bell.
But they needed that portal.
So what if they was not trying to possess the child, but trying to possess John? They started with the child, then went to the wife. It was very odd that they did that. The man, in attempts to, this is all coming around full circle. What if they went to the wife because the husband's going to be like, "No, you take me." Because like with the David Gretzel case, David Gretzel case, Arnie was like, "Stop messing with this kid. Pick on someone like me." And then the possession went to him. What if it's, what if it starts as infestation? It creates and starts breaking the barrier. Then it goes to oppression, which then causes whatever that chemical reaction or the brain waves or whatever you're putting out into the universe to break that barrier. And then they use possession to bring it into whatever it is for us. Now, how that ties to this story, I don't know how it would, because you're still opening a portal inside yourself. But that's a crazy
You've made my job so easy, Bert. So easy. You're making this so easy. Because, well, I'm not going to give away anything. But with the theory that you put forward, what if simultaneously to them trying to scratch through the barrier, open the portal, all that kind of stuff, what if someone was scientifically, methodically trying to assist them in opening that portal? And what
in the person?
Well, the scratching and stuff isn't necessarily coming from the person. Sometimes it comes.
Yeah, it comes.
I can imagine it.
Sources.
Yeah, like the barrier's really all around us, but the weak point is the person. That's how I'm picturing it. That's where it's easiest to do that. But what if 100%. They're scratching at the barrier all around the person and we're trying to help them open the barrier? Maybe we can make it easier that it doesn't have to be in that person. Or maybe it's through that person and we can somehow access that portal through that person. And let me ask you this as a kind of segue. You said, why is it always kids? Why is it always kids? Imagine that a kid's a battery and you're trying to operate a device and you wanted to give that device 50 times the power. What would you do? You need 50 batteries.
Yeah, you would need 50 batteries.
And if batteries are the kids, what might they need at this facility?
A whole bunch of kids.
Right. So this might be going somewhere.
That's really interesting.
Because if you
now
can,
I see parallels in other things that we've talked about.
well, this is definitely like Stranger Things, but if you can open a little portal with one child, if you had tons of children and you were all terrifying them, terrorizing them, using fear and oppression and assisting these things at coming through the barrier, could you maybe generate a big portal?
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's remember when we did the infield poltergeist?
Mm-hmm.
And the guy, I forget his name now, asked the demon, why do you use the child? And the demon laughed in that manly voice and said, that's where I get my power from. But when
Sort of adding up, isn't it?
Yeah, because remember when we talked about the infield, we hadn't gotten this far down.
Right.
Like, we've not seen enough of these cases where we're like, and I think we both said something along the lines of, like, they're using it as some form of power, but now it
right. We specifically said
else.
that.
Yeah.
We specifically did say that.
Yeah.
And I'm remembering it now that you're bringing it up, which is like, there's something to this. And when you hear the next segment, you're gonna kind of be like, wow, I didn't know this was coming up, but this makes perfect sense now.
Because remember on the infield, we thought that was so weird that he said that he needed some power. That just didn't make sense.
Mm-hmm. I do remember that specifically.
Also, there's always cold spots.
Right.
Isn't that odd that there's always cold spots? Kind of
like something's draining.
Well, think about it. Or like a chemical reaction, right? Like we talked about chemical reaction with kids. Like when we got the cans of air and you hold down and it causes the can to get cold.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like same process, right? Why does the can get cold?
Right.
Chemical reaction.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's all, wow, man, that's
like,
crazy.
This is a crazy connection, right?
Yeah, like my brain is firing all over the place because even the stuff from my channel, I sit there and I think, man, this all clicks even with this now. This may be the best episode we've ever done because it's piecing together pieces that I've not linked together before.
Right. We do that from time to time because there's the parks thing. That was our other big, what I feel is like a discovery. This is along those lines, which is also in a park now too.
It's
but
a coincidence.
Yeah. I want to just briefly, the crystal thing you brought up earlier. Brian, who went with him last time, had to leave because he was feeling weird vibrations, and crystals are specifically attuned to vibrations apparently as well. So that might support that. But there's a demon trying to create a portal to enter our realm. And he says in Infield, when asked, why do you target children? And he's like, because I need the energy, I need the power, or whatever. What if that singular demon, instead of having one child, had 50 children at the same time, feeding him, empowering him? What could he do? Because I don't think that would ever happen naturally.
You know what I just thought of?
What?
Every case that we've ever covered, this possession, there's multiple children.
Right.
There's never one singular child, ever.
No, I don't think I know any cases like that.
David Gretzel, at least 2 or 3 children.
Yeah.
The Ammons family haunting,
Mm-hmm.
multiple children. Enfield had 4 siblings.
Yep.
Bell had what, 7 kids, 6 kids, 8 kids?
Oh,
7,
they had
8, something like that.
they had a bunch.
Isn't that odd? That it's always like, you would assume like one story would be like this one kid was possessed. The Connecticut haunting, was that one kid?
I don't think so. I think in the past it was very rare that there would ever be one child in a family. Very rare.
It's odd though.
Yeah.
You know? Possessions
It is odd.
always revolves around children, and there's always models.
And imagine you had just tons of children all in the same room and you were tormenting the living daylights out of them. What kind of energy could you generate for the beast then?
And it's like dogs.
Mm-hmm.
When a dog is around nervous energy, it freaks out.
Yep.
What if, oh man, this is crazy. It's coming around full circle in my
I
head.
know, eh?
Like when you listen to Caesar Malone, right? That dog trainer guy. We've brought like every freaking celebrity known to man into this episode.
Know. We got like hashtag to the cows come home here.
Exactly. Caesar Milan, he always said, you got to check your energy at the door because your dog will feed off of whatever energy you have. So if you have nervous energy, it feeds off of that nervous energy, and then it becomes uncomfortable and it becomes to the point to where it'll strike out.
Right.
What if, again, animals, I think, can sense things that we can't sense. They're just out of our realm of possibilities, almost like they have a sixth sense, so to speak. What if they can see our energy or feel our energy? And when we have a nervous energy or a anxious or an oppressed energy, if it's almost like the aura thing up in the sky, what's it?
Like Aurora Borealis, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Like you can see it during certain circumstances based on the alignment of things. What if in their world they can see that energy because that energy exists and it just exudes past us, no differently than carbon dioxide coming out of our mouth when we're breathing out? What if that same thing is there, and that's why dogs can sense it, or other animals, right?
Yeah.
Like I watched a video of a mountain lion that was chasing this guy down. Now this guy had a gun,
right?
But it was stalking it, and you could hear the guy's breathing. You could see his energy, and that mountain lion changed how it started doing things because it knew he was scared,
right?
And it thought it had a lag up. What if there's energy out there that we just cannot see? I mean, think about it. Nikola Tesla and all them was trying to create all these direct current modules, which was based on like Jacob's ladders and stuff like that.
Right.
You can't see that energy in the sky.
No.
But
Supposedly, before he was shut down by the government, Nikola Tesla was feeding electricity into the atmosphere that could be accessed by all people for free. And to this day, supposedly that same energy is still up there. I don't see it.
We're doing the same thing.
It's
I mean,
there.
think about it. Think about it. All you guys out in land, you have a cell phone.
Yeah.
When you press the screen, how do you think it's interacting? We have electric that's going through our body. It's sensing that electric. What if, man, there has to be tests on this. I wonder if based on certain emotional things, if we have a higher voltage of energy that exudes from our body or a further distance.
I would
because
assume
even if I hover my finger just ever so slightly over my cell phone, I can make it interact without touching my screen.
Well, when I'm wearing gloves in the winter, like thin gloves, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Which means it's going past that barrier of skin. That energy.
To bring it back to Stranger Things again, I don't know if you recall, but when they were tracking Vecna or their friends were in the Upside Down, if they brought a lamp or something near where they were.
You're right. Oh my God. I got so excited. Sorry. I'm hitting too many things over. You're right. That's crazy. I didn't even think of that. You're right. Man.
Well, I never made the connection until you brought this up. but that's something they must have made the connection on. So I think other people have had similar thought processes to this. Maybe not everything we said, but some of it.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Or like even our cell phone chargers. You put them on top of that thing and it starts charging without. That is so crazy. I never thought about that from a human body perspective before.
Yeah. That's wild, isn't it?
That's really wild. Like I'm like, we got electric in our fingertips, but I never thought about it from a demon standpoint. What if that changes? There's got to be studies. Someone had to have thought of this, and they've had to.
I would think
science
so.
would never study that. Well, science would
Well,
study it,
you can't get a grant for that. You can't get a grant for it anyway.
But it's like, I wonder how many people with the pseudoscience, as they like to put it, has attempted to try to figure out what that energy would be. I wonder if anyone's ever hooked someone up.
I don't know. That'd be interesting.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, there's some people. They were underground at Camp Hero. And they were quite evil. They have done that. But there's a lot of connections you can make here. And a lot of the stories sort of link together in ways that it would be hard to fake this stuff sometimes.
Man, that's all crazy.
Mm-hmm.
This has been the best episode because I've linked so many things together in this one that now I wish we could go back and re-record some of the episodes we have, because now I've got information I didn't have the first time we did it.
Well, maybe we can do a revisit episode sometimes where we relink things.
Because think about it, that national park thing, had we had that in that episode, we could have went a completely different direction with that too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. And that was a good episode too. That was like, we were really connecting things there. Now, I mean, people could be listening to this and be like, these guys are off the deep end. But
they probably are.
There's connections here. Maybe it means something. Maybe we're just seeing patterns where they don't exist, but it's interesting.
I've heard it said, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yep. That's right.
I don't know. I have a bad habit of, I call it casting the line out, and then I got to reel myself in. But man, I feel like I don't have to reel myself in on this, because it connects with so many different things that we couldn't piece together in other episodes.
Yep, it does really well. And man, you couldn't have made it more perfect for where we're going to on our journey next. Like really, really, this connection that you've made is big. It's big.
Now I want to hear it, Nick.
Oh, we can anytime you want to.
Man, I want to hear at least this next segment. Does the next segment go into it? Is that what it is?
Yes. It's going to tell us who was experimented on. And it's going to tell us how we found out and how people started coming forward about it.
It is now 1992, and a strange creature has washed up on the shore at Montauk Point. The creature, though hard to identify, was thought to resemble a dog except for its beak-like mouth, or a giant turtle except turtles are fused with their shell unlike the creature. Whatever it was, someone must have known, as its front legs were bound with wire. Tales of the creature and its seeming reference at Camp Hero in Nichols' book renewed interest. The book, called The Montauk Project, Experiments in Time, outlined some of the experiments that had taken place and was now reaching a wider audience. Numerous people have stepped forward to tell the tales of their recovered memories from the base. Apparently, the test subjects were mostly children, some abducted in large numbers from as far away as New York. One such test subject is Joe LaFreno. "It's a place that's dominated my life and my nightmares," he told the New York Post in an interview in 2020. Paraphrased, the Post's article reads, "Numerous Montauk residents dismiss the stories surrounding Camp Hero, which suggest it was a hub for secret government experiments involving mind control, time travel, wormholes, teleportation, and children subjected to experiments in concealed underground labs." These rumors gained traction in 1992, 11 years after the closure of the military base at Camp Hero. Preston Nichols' book, The Montauk Project, Experiments in Time, detailed sinister experiments with genetic and psychological manipulation on kidnapped local boys, akin to Nazi-style practices. Now, 53 years old and employed as a parks worker at Camp Hero, Joe LaFreno, a Montauk native, contends that he is one of the lost and tormented Montauk boys featured in Nichols' book. LaFreno, who initially doubted these claims, disclosed that he underwent hypnosis about 2 years ago, triggering a flood of memories. He adamantly believes that he and others endured traumatic experiences as children during the summer of 1980 and possibly 1981. According to LaFreno's recollection under hypnosis, a local, U011ing boy, invited him to bike to the base, where he and others were taken to a sunken house on the base by 2 men in civilian attire. Later, they were led underground through Battery 113, a sealed gunnery from World War II. LaFreno vividly recalls lying on a table with electrodes attached, stating they were analyzed like animals, estimating there were up to 50 other children present, some of whom he believes were later killed. Despite the extraordinary nature of his claims, LaFreno, employed at the park, with a stable personal life and positive relationships, garners respect from locals who consider him a friend. Under hypnosis, he revisited the site of the sunken house with another parks employee named Charlie, who corroborated the findings. LaFreno expressed a desire to excavate the area, suspecting the presence of cement structures, though he acknowledges the unlikely approval from his boss. Many more have related similar tales since. Is this a case of copycats, false memories, or were the stories of vile experiments, timeline travel, and released entities real?
So, go ahead.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
This may not be related. In
Okay.
fact, it's probably not related, but I got to get this thought process out of my head real quick, and then we'll move on. What if, with hypnosis, right? People have you ever been hypnotized before?
No.
I've never been formally hypnotized, but I've listened to like those audio things at night.
Right. Oh, I've done that kind of thing.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. What if, and I'm thinking of UFO stuff. Man, this is so crazy. I'm thinking of Betty and Barney.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of their stuff came from hypnosis, right?
Right.
When they're, or like, let's say someone has a traumatic experience as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
They put them under hypnosis, and then what do they say? Let's go back to when you were a child.
Right.
Or let's
go interested
back
in
to
where
the
you're
sun.
going with that. Yeah.
What if, and I'm probably way off on this, but this sparked in my thought process right when I started to go a different direction, but then that popped in my head and I'm like, I got to get this out. I'm going to lose it. What if inside of our brain, because we're talking about dimensions, what if there's a 4-dimensional plane inside of our dimensional range? So we see in 3 dimensions. There's 3 dimensions, which is always X, Y, and Z. That's how we see the world. What if there's a 4th dimension, which is time?
Right. Which we know there is.
And that time, correct. But what if in whatever this other dimension is, because now we're 1 dimension up from wherever we are.
Right.
What if that dimension switch provides for us to move on a movable scale within time? And that's why through hypnosis, we are able to go back to that time period.
Right.
We say we can't do time travel, but what if that's what hypnosis really is? It's a form of time travel. I wonder if... Wait. I wonder if psychic mediums who can project future events, if they're doing the same scale, but they're doing it going forward, because this, in whatever realm this is, wow, that's really freaky. What if they're able to pull us back? They can't necessarily push us forward because maybe we're incapable of, most of us are incapable of that. But what if they're able to then slide on that fourth dimensional plane, which is time, to see events that could occur? But because we live in a world of free will,
it changes.
That's a sliding scale.
Right. It would be a case of percent chances at that point.
Yeah, because what is it we talk about, right? If there's other we say that everything that could happen or would happen has happened in another dimensional plane.
Right.
What if we're constantly moving in and out of that dimensional plane? What if, oh my God, what if we're constantly in a cycle of moving in and out of these dimensions? Which would explain our Mandela effect too.
Right. You're
what if
right.
we're constantly, man, that's so crazy. What if we're moving in and out of that current cycle and psychics can kind of pull ahead, but because we're constantly moving in and out of that, let's call it a wave. That's probably the best way for me to put it. Like a sound wave, it has a pattern. Or tide waves, it has a pattern. What if we're going through, but we occasionally slip into another path and then we just avoided whatever that was? But you look at Nostradamus, right? How many things has he gotten right?
Oh, seemingly a lot. Yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff he's gotten wrong too.
Right.
What if it just didn't take that path that he was looking at? That is so crazy.
Well, along those same lines of thought, there's an additional implication from earlier in this story. They had a lot of people involved in this, a lot of adult workers. Now, children, they can affect their memories easy. Like children can block things out. It's a lot harder to do that with adults. And remember, the only person who remembered Nichols' work there, remember these other workers, a guy who went AWOL right after the base was abandoned, right? That homeless guy, he remembered everything. No one else did. Nichols didn't. And he can account for all this time. What if these portals they can open, they can draw from different times? They employ people from different timelines, alternate realities, alternate timelines, have them work at this base. Like they say, oh, Bert, we know you're really good in this area of science. We want you, but we can't have you because we can't expose you to the secrets. They pull you from an alternate timeline, make you work in this facility. And when it's over, they send you back or even destroy you. Now, where these are alternate timelines, we can access the memories of it, perhaps from sleep, perhaps from hypnosis, where we're sliding on that fourth dimension like you're talking about. But that's why most people don't remember, because it was not them, it was alternate thems that were working in the facility.
Like Multiplicity, the movie Multiplicity,
right?
Same concept.
Because if it was actually him, he couldn't account for the time that he was there because he was working another job. At some point, there were two Nichols working in this dimension, and the other one either got destroyed or sent back. And he can recover those memories through hypnosis because, like you're theorizing, he's slipping through timelines.
That's crazy.
Now, this is like that Aliens guy. What if, you know? I'm not saying it's that.
These are great sci-fi, like, thought processes.
Right.
But some great sci-fi thought processes could become reality. We don't understand enough of this to understand what's truly there.
Exactly.
At best, it makes for a great story.
Yeah. And as you saw in the clip that we just went by. So let me just break it down for everyone, just in case, because I know these segments are really long, that the narration I've set up. So what happened is a creature very similar to the one described in. So Nichols' book didn't reach a large audience. Okay. He's self-published, like it's available for free on the internet. But the creature mentioned in this book, something similar to it that's bound with wire on its legs, washes up on shore, and someone says, man, what is this creature? And people start saying in the local area where it washed up, that's a lot like this thing in this crackpot's book that he wrote. So people start reading this book, and some people who read it, their memories get triggered of when they were children. They go in to see hypnotists or whatever, recover memories, And they start contacting Nichols, and he's collecting this now. So there's a lot of kids saying, oh, I was one of these kids. I can verify there were tons of kids there. You know, I was picked up off the streets in New York. I was kidnapped from the local area, you know, all this kind of stuff.
That's wow.
Mm-hmm. And you can see the parallels with Stranger Things, of course. Kidnapping all these children, putting them through tests. It was a little kinder in Stranger Things, but same kind of premise.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Now, I will give a warning
to so many stories
to people, because I just talked about the book being freely available. I'm not describing horrible things that they did to these children or any of that kind of stuff. So beware if you do want to read more into this. There's stuff in the book you might not like. There's stuff in, witness testimony that you might not like. So be careful.
Good thought process.
Yeah, but they were charging up kids like batteries and monitoring them 50 at a time, according to that park ranger.
I wonder what's so different about kids and like adults.
I
wonder what that is.
I don't know. There's a lot of people have theorized about that because it comes up a lot with poltergeist.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's some other energy.
That's wild. And it's almost always when they're going through puberty, which is weird.
Yep.
That's so odd.
Yeah, so they were really riling these kids up too, because that one guy claims that, and it's terrible to even think about. He is sure that a lot of the kids were killed. And even if that weren't happening, if you were there and you thought that was happening, what kind of mental state would that put you in? Like, maybe they weren't doing that, but they were telling the kids they were.
Not only that, but from a fear perspective.
Right, and I think that's what they were getting at. Like, they were using these kids to open these portals, and the more of them they brought in, the stronger it could be.
That's really interesting. Wow. We built so many parallels on so many different things.
I know. There's connections upon connections.
And you know what's wild? The story that we're going to do next week, we've kind of hinted at it. A lot of these things fall into that story too.
Right.
But based on this story, it's going to change how I go into the next story. Just built off the things we talked about right now.
I hope I didn't mess up your plans or make you redo some of it. That's kind of.
I think it's for the better.
Yeah.
Because it's like, had we had some of this stuff on our previous podcast, we would have looked in a different direction. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Is looking in what directions what things fall into.
I think over time, this is going to continually happen, or I hope it does. Really. Like, it's ideal that this stuff comes up.
Yes. Unless you're the government and you want to use Nick and I to figure this stuff out in the events that you're thinking that we're really not good at this. We cheated somehow.
Yeah, we're crazy crackpots. We're handing out pamphlets. It's like we don't know what we're talking about.
We have no clue. We're passing pamphlets out, man.
Yeah, that's right. Tinfoil hats, all that stuff.
Wild. That is so wild. I've got so many different thought processes going through my head right now, and I'm trying to shut them up.
The other thing I want to recap is that guy in the narrative, and I think there was a part of that might have been a little confusing. He took some of his recovered memories about where these underground facilities were, and he found evidence that there were cement structures underneath exactly where he thought he was being held, but his supervisor won't let him do any kind of excavation because it is a park now. Some of it's a park.
That's wild. There's something to that. What that is, I don't know, but there's something to that.
Yeah. I mean, even if there wasn't anything there, they don't allow you to do construction or excavation in parks, period. They just don't.
Right.
So, but there is something at this location.
I mean, yeah, at a minimum, there's got to be something there that they just don't want the public to know or understand.
Right.
Or even attempt to capitalize on.
Yeah. I think it's kind of funny too. And we talked about it a little earlier, how they were able to keep this absolutely secret for so long. And then just some guy who just is doing some random study with psychics notice, like, there's something affecting these guys. Let me strap an antenna to my car and drive around. And then he discovers one of the biggest secrets that I can imagine, if it's true. And this
so
blows the whole thing up, but not right away. Not right away. Because he's like, something's weird here. I can't get in there. I don't know what it is. And years later, one of his friends just happens to say, oh, I was passing through the area and some of the gates are smashed down. Like, there's nothing there. You can probably go back. He goes back, happens to meet a homeless person who identifies him as his project supervisor. He tries to purchase this equipment, and it just snowballs from there.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, this would have remained a secret probably forever if he hadn't met that guy. Or if he hadn't done that study.
Crazy.
Or if he didn't have an antenna on his car.
That's crazy. There's something to it. I have so many thoughts going through my brain right now. There's no way I could focus it in. There's just no way. It's almost like there's just things bouncing around in there now. And the problem is the way my brain works. I'm trying to piece it together with everything else we've ever done too.
Yeah.
So it makes it very hard for me to focus on just one thing.
It's very rare that I have any kind of hint about what we're going to be talking about next. But from the sounds of it, later on the next one, we might be able to have a chance to revisit this in how it relates to the next topic. And that might be really cool.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
If we can connect it somehow.
Right. Well, I mean, you'll have time to digest all your ping-ponging thoughts about it. And, you might come up with something in your sleep tonight. You're like, I know what it is.
Oh, yeah. It'll get wrote. Literally, like if my phone's a very dangerous spot because it's literally like if you go into the notepad, it's just note after note after note after note after note. Like, it's almost insane. Like, these are all just my notes. Like, you guys can't see this, but it's literally just note after note after note after note.
That's a lot.
These are all different ideas and concepts.
Well, there's going to be different a few more today.
Yeah. That's crazy. Because you have to think to yourself, and I'm trying to focus back in. I'm sorry. There's just it's just a lot of info.
Oh, this is good.
You have to think. Now, since we have a basic understanding of the last segment, you know what fits this perfectly?
What?
It's stupid. It's absolutely stupid. Monsters, Inc.
They're going through those doors and gathering charges from scaring people.
Think about it. They're going to kids. They're opening doors from other dimensions. The only thing I don't think that they cover is time travel in that. But everything else fits. I guess I never pieced it together.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's why they built that movie. If it's like a demonic thought process. Like, that's how demons work. That's how these monsters would work.
Oh, maybe.
That's where they came up with that. It's not like we're the first person to ever think of this.
Right. Well, see, here's something that I know, and I wasn't going to mention it, but I kind of flubbed this part, is there were other movies based off of parts of this, and I completely did not write it down, and I drew a blank on what it was. I can only remember Stranger Things, but there were others that were based on this.
Well, I know Freddy Krueger was based off of the Vietnam War. I know that. Or at least Freddy Krueger was the initial thought process is because what was happening was people was falling asleep over there and they was just dying in their sleep randomly.
Yeah.
I think it was Freddy Krueger.
Well, that's definitely what happens with him.
Yeah, for sure. You go to night land and you dead.
Mm-hmm. You gone.
And that's the thing. A lot of these movies, it's hard to tell where they come up with their idea and concept.
Right. Well, I mean, you could
like I always thought,
hear about this. It goes into your subconscious and you just write something later you think is original. And it's this.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, think about it. We're talking about this case and now I'm flying back to our third episode.
Right.
I mean, because it's like, it fits. Now it fits. Whereas before we would end the podcast and be like, man, that's weird. That's a crazy story.
Yeah.
Wonder why they would do that. That's a real dumb thing for them to do. It doesn't make sense. Like, why would you haunt a kid for? Why is it always kids? Why are they using kids as energy?
Yeah.
Well, it all makes sense. If there is a dimension and they're trying to crack that dimension open and that's the power conduit.
Right.
Like you can't play with a toy unless you have enough power.
Yep.
You can't use your cell phone.
Yeah, like some things take 4 batteries. You put 1 in it, it's not going to work. 2, not going to work. It's got to be 4. Right. Maybe it's got to be 50. Maybe it's got to be 75. Like, who knows the number? Did they crack the number when they had 50 and that experiment went wrong? Like, you know, maybe that's the only success they actually had. But they weren't prepared for the result of a successful experiment.
Correct. That's crazy, man.
Yeah,
it's like me when I buy AA batteries. I buy a 20 pack.
Yeah,
I don't know how many I'm gonna need.
Right,
but I've always got 20 if I need them.
That's right. You know that's right. It's that's like you know how terrifying a demonic possession is. What if instead of a demon in a human body, you pulled through a demon? Like that's got to be pretty scary.
Right. The only thing I can't wrap my brain around is how it creates its own entity.
Right.
Being pulled through. That's the only thing I can't wrap my brain around.
Yeah. We might not know.
Just we've never covered anything.
Right. If we use the Freddy Krueger example, what they would be able to do is if they grabbed something from Freddy in their dream and woke up, it would come with them. But that doesn't explain how that works. That's just something in the movie. Right.
Well, what was that story about that guy that had the passport?
The man from Torrid?
Torrid.
Yeah.
He had to have created an entire body somehow.
Right. And brought things with him. Right.
Yeah.
That's a good connection. I never thought of that.
The story that we're going to cover next week has similar aspects to it.
Right.
Which, by the way, I'm probably going to add little bits and pieces of Art Bell's radio in the story.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Just bits and pieces.
Yeah. Fair use.
I've got a few ideas. Yeah, I got a few ideas I think it'll be fun because I want people to hear the actual words being said.
Yeah.
That guy reminds me of Bob Lazar a little bit.
Yeah.
Very interesting speaking patterns.
Oh, yeah.
Highly intelligent.
I feel like he's friendlier, though. I feel like he was friendlier.
Who, Bob Lazar?
Nope. Art Bell.
I was like, you was just complaining about Bob Lazar last time we did the Bob Lazar episode.
I think I'll repeat this. I probably said it before. I feel like Bob Lazar would be a great guy. You'd be hanging out with him. And then you say something like, you know what? I don't really care for barbecue potato chips. And he'd be like, you son of a B word. And he'd fight you.
What are you talking about?
He's like, how dare you?
How dare you? That's the stupidest thing I ever heard in my entire life.
Yeah, like you get right mad.
I built a car with a rocket.
Yeah, you get right mad at you. And then he'd all of a sudden just like flicking a switch. He'd be like, yeah, but I can see how people would think that way. And then he's cool again. But Art Bell, I think he'd be cool all the time.
Oh, for sure. I've never, in all the stuff I've listened to, I've never heard him lose his cool.
No.
That's interesting. There's a lot of correlation with next week's episode with this too. That's what I think is so cool about this. There's definitely a correlation with it.
If there ever was an episode, I'm going to say this, if there ever was an episode where I left out a ton of potentially important information and events, it is this episode.
Nick's like, hindsight.
No, I did it intentionally.
You did it
I simply could not cover this whole story. The book is a large book, There's a lot of things going on, but I wanted to tell a story that we could follow and has some of the main things that happen that you can relate, because there's a lot of stuff where it's just like, this thing happened. Well, what do we talk about? There's no reason why that happened. Like, I can't explain that, but there's just so much. There's so much. But I left out a ton of stuff. The closing segment, the next one we're going to listen to, I'm going to list a bunch of other stuff related to Camp Hero and Montauk Point and that kind of thing, just briefly, and then we can discuss that. But there's just, you know, on this topic, we could have had a 9-hour podcast and people would like hunt us down and fight us. So
based on the new stuff that we've kind of covered through here, was there anything that you can think back on now that you left out where you're like, man, had I known we would have went down this path, I would have included it?
Oh yeah, there's a lot. And beyond even what's in the last segment there, it almost makes me want to go back through the book again and make notes. Because yeah, like if I had known we were going to go this way, I might have even added another hour onto this and just said, too bad we're doing our first 3-parter.
Well, we can ask the people out there too.
Yeah.
Hey, if you've enjoyed part 1 and part 2 so far, and you want us to deep dive further into this and the things that we've not covered, let us know in the comments down below. Let us know. Do you want to hear more of this story?
There is a lot more. There is a lot more.
I think that's the thing, is when we go down an avenue that we don't think of, and then, because I mean, that's happened to me in podcasts I've created before. I'm like, man, had I known we would have went down this, I probably would have emphasized this part differently.
Right. Like, this is kind of like a thing we're learning as podcasters. Like, you know, how do we compensate? Like, if we get into a podcast and we come up with a revelation at the last half of the second episode, you know, do we continue? Like, are people going to like that? Are they going to like I know I do. Some people might enjoy doing research on their own. Some people are going to want to read this book now. And it'll be easier for them to read if we don't spoil everything.
You know what we should do?
What?
Once a year, we should take a series of our episodes and do little like, had I known then what I know now.
That would be cool.
And just cover like a few different segments. Yeah.
Yeah. That could be like, I don't know when we do that. If it'd be like at the beginning of the year, talk about the previous year, or at the end of the year. Because at the end of the year, we're quite full up on stuff. Like we always have big plans at the end of the year.
Halloween to Christmas, baby.
That's right.
Busy.
It's packed. It is packed.
Man, it really is.
I'd like to do that though.
Well, I want to hear this. Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Or like if it's a big one, like this one, by the sounds of it's really big. Like there's a lot of stuff we didn't cover. Like this might be one we might want to cover, you know, a month from now or something. Just go into the segments we didn't even cover.
Well, you people out there in TV land, let us know what you'd like. If you want more, let us know.
Yeah, because here's the thing: is that when we don't know, we just move on.
Yeah.
Because we assume there's no interest.
Yep.
So it's easier to say something, even if you think you're the vocal minority. Because here's the thing: just because you don't see something in comments doesn't mean that we're not getting it on social media or we're hearing it through word of mouth. There's a lot of different places the information comes in. So don't assume because you don't see it in one of the places we are that it's not being talked about. So
yeah,
always let us know.
Yeah, maybe if it's just one person who wants to hear it, we'll call you up and just tell you. No, just kidding.
Yeah,
we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't harass you.
You know what we should do?
What?
I don't know how hard this would be, is have like an Art Bell segment kind of deal where we review a topic that we've covered and then we allow people to be able to call in.
That would be so much fun.
And then they could talk about the things that they think as we go through, because we have the capability of up to 10 people. We could have 10 different people, but we handle them one at a time.
Yep. And keep in mind, people, if
We'll
you're,
call her. Where you calling from?
keep in mind, people, that we'll still screen. So don't be too crazy.
Oh yeah, best believe this is all post-production.
Yeah.
if you say something real dumb, it's going to get cut real quick.
Yeah, for sure.
Your segment won't make it.
Yeah.
If you knew how much stuff through the magic of editing happens, so don't try us because you're going to figure out real quick.
Yeah. You just get no results. That's all.
Because correct.
Yeah.
But that would be fun.
That would be
fun. We readdress something that we covered, and we let people call in and give their thought processes. And
yeah, I always want to hear people's thoughts on it.
Oh heck yeah! Like we had one the other day. It was a comment on something. I sent it to you, and I was like, "Look at this."
Is it that one that made me laugh? Like I was at work and I just snorted instantaneous. The one that has the very last comment there.
Yeah, that's one of them.
Mm.
But the Oak Island one, that one was well thought out.
That person was brilliant. Like
they was legit brilliant.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. I almost wanted to frame that and say, look, we got the attention of someone who really knows this topic.
Correct.
Like they were agreeing with us, but they had so much more.
Oh, they added so much to that conversation. It was crazy. Mm. And I think that's the thing. It's like, it's cool that we talk about a lot of ideas and concepts, but I always like to hear other people's ideas and concepts too, because it might spark something. Like all the stuff that we came up with today, whether you think it's crazy or not, I would have never came up with that on my own.
Me neither.
Took Nick having a puzzle piece that he hands to me and I go, wait a second, that connects here. And like I say, my brain is a weird place anyway. Like I'm constantly shuffling information's the best way I can put it. I'm moving and moving and moving. And when I see, it's like, what's that game the kids play where it's like, do they have brown hair?
Oh, Clue.
Yeah, it's like,
wait, no, not
I see
Clue.
Two things that match. It's not Clue. It's
Guess Who.
Guess Who.
That's the one.
Yeah. Like when I see two things that match, I connect it and then I'm able to put them down. I'm like, okay, now I can move on to the next thing.
Yeah, you did some real heavy lifting today. I'll tell you.
It's a weird place in there. I'm always scared of what's up there because I never really know what's up there. Most of the time I'm way off, but sometimes I feel like we hunker in on some stuff.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those times.
That and our national parks.
Oh, that's still going strong.
The most excited things I think that you and I have ever figured out has been the national parks, and then whatever we figured out on this. I feel like we've figured out a whole bunch of things.
Heck yeah. Are you ready to listen to all the things or some of the things that are very interesting that I couldn't go into detail on?
Is that in this next segment?
This is the final segment.
Are we doing that before the segment?
Nope, this is the final segment.
Yeah.
It's just going to list a bunch of things that are really interesting. It's still only like 10% of the whole, but I just wanted to put them out there so you can see. And I'm not selling this book, by the way, but I want to say there's some wild stuff in here and you should look into it or ask us to look further into it.
Heck yeah. Hey, some people don't want to read.
Yeah. Well, this next segment is dedicated to anyone who doesn't want to read.
To truly understand the scope of the Montauk Project, it would be important to read Nichols' book and decide for yourself. While most of the claims lack credible physical evidence, this can be explained by the off-limits areas that still exist. Many claims from Nichols' and others have been corroborated by well-respected members of the community. The following is a list of the experiments that have been said to be conducted on the site. Time travel experiments. The Montauk Project allegedly involved experiments in time travel, with researchers attempting to manipulate, split, and control time. Mind control experiments. Researchers conducted mind control experiments on individuals, attempting to influence thoughts, behavior, and consciousness. Seemingly with some success, as they appear to have been able to bury memories of victims and employees en masse. These victims only recover these memories with extensive effort, if at all. Teleportation and wormholes. The project supposedly explored the creation of teleportation devices and the manipulation of wormholes for rapid travel between locations. Could this explain the appearance of creatures in the base and on the shorelines? Genetic manipulation. Some theories suggest that the Montauk Project involved genetic experiments, including altering the DNA of subjects for various purposes. Abductions and alien connections. Claims that the project involved abductions of individuals by extra-dimensional beings with a focus on studying and experimenting on human subjects. This could be in retaliation for human experiments which cause intrusion into their spaces. Psychological warfare and programming. The project is believed to have included psychological warfare experiments, programming individuals for specific tasks or creating sleeper agents. Creating the Montauk Boys. The concept of the Montauk Boys suggests that children were subjected to experiments and mind control, creating a group of individuals with enhanced abilities. While Stranger Things might seem like fiction to the Montauk Boys, the treatment and living conditions would seem identical, even if the results were not.
And that's a sampling of other things you can expect from this twisting Montauk mystery.
You know, it said something else in there that really sparked my thought process again.
I think I saw it when that happened.
What if? That's going to become my new favorite
What
phrase.
if?
Instead of like the Mulder sign, it says, I want to believe. It says, what if?
I should make that for you. A little poster you can put up.
That'd be great. I'm gonna throw your fishing line out a little bit.
Okay.
I'm gonna let you reel in.
All right.
UFO abductions. The person's always on a table.
Yep.
And they're getting experimented on. Are they able to move?
No.
And they call that what? They assume it's some form of what?
Sleep paralysis.
Even like when there's ghosts and stuff. Sleep paralysis, right? Today we talked about sleep and opening dimensions.
Are you moving into the alien dimension with this? Yeah. Interesting. So the point there about extra dimensional, there was also extraterrestrial experimentation as well. And they said that there were abductions and cooperations for abductions by both these types of entities at this facility as well. So the person who thought that some of the children were killed, they may have been sent to the extraterrestrials or the extra dimensional creatures. That is another possibility.
What if?
What if? What if?
Our brain shifts for movement when we go into sleep mode. We're able to touch a dimension, or we're between a dimensions prior to where a ghost would be, or in this similar, which, wow, that's crazy. What if, you know how we have dreams about, man, I dreamt you was in my dream,
right?
Blah, 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 blah. What if in the same moment, two people's energies converge within that dimensional plane? I've said this, and you guys can freaking fact check me. I've said there's our dimension.
Right.
I think there's a ghost dimension, and then there's alien or UFO dimensions. I've almost always categorized it as three different dimensions.
You've talked about that a number of times.
What if, a lot of times, what if the reason that alien abductions is always sleep paralysis is because we don't have the option of using our movement in that third dimension? It's almost one dimension too far.
It could very well be. Like maybe we don't know how to exist properly in that one the same way that the demons don't know how to exist properly in ours normally.
Correct.
Right, under normal circumstances.
Correct.
That's something interesting to think about.
But because like with aliens, they're 3 dimensions up, but they're looking down. They can see everything their dimension and lower. Ghosts can see, and the whole reason I've always said us, ghosts, demons, or us, ghosts, UFOs, because people's probably always like, why is it that he doesn't put ghosts and UFOs in the same categories? Because I've never heard a story where a ghost looks at a UFO and goes, wow, like, could you imagine getting a photo of that? Getting a photo of a ghost, but the ghost is looking at a UFO and you get both in the same freaking picture?
There is no way that anyone would ever believe it, even if it were absolutely true.
They would believe
Like, I'd be like, okay, that's cool. Thank you, Midjourney or whatever.
That's what I'm saying. That'd be crazy, though. But what if, because we can maybe tiptoe into the one dimension, wow, yeah. And then, oh man, what if deja vu, we fell into that other dimension and we're sliding on that fourth dimensional plane.
Right.
And we're reflecting back on memories where we flew. Remember how I said maybe psychics or clairvoyants can go ahead and hit a spot?
Well, I think you're onto something there, because through the hypnosis, Nichols was able to sort of recover memories from his split timeline that he wasn't actually at. So,
yeah, isn't that crazy? Man, we've covered so many crazy things.
Yeah, theoretical, but I think we hit some stuff.
I think so too. I think there's something there.
Yeah.
What it is, I don't know. Like, I can't piece it all together in my brain. I've got it's almost like right now I've got like 55 pieces sitting on the table and I've got 2 connected perfectly
It's
together.
like, there's something here. There's
like,
a picture to be seen.
What do I do with these other 48 pieces? But I know it's part of the puzzle. I just can't piece them quite together.
That's right. Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
As we advance on. Well, everyone out there in podcast land, wherever you're listening, wherever you're seeing, do you want us to dive back into this and maybe do a third part later on?
That'd be a first.
Maybe a month from now, 2 months from now. That'd be a first. We've never had a 3-parter.
Yeah.
Then again, I don't know that we've dug so deep into something that we've come up with different thoughts and processes. Next week's, I'm going to tell you, parallels this. It's crazy because people's going to be like, man, they clearly piece these together.
No.
They're so close together. They're so close together. It's crazy. You're going to listen to next week's and you're going to be like, that's nuts.
I can't wait. I don't know anything about it, but this is the closest I've ever gotten to having a hint. So I'm excited.
It really is. Man. Well, which reminds me, wherever you're listening to the podcast, please be sure to rate us out there. Let us know in the comments down below what you like most.
We like hearing from you. We do.
We like hearing from you. Listen, we want to make sure you're still out there. We see you watching the videos and listening to the podcast. We know you're out there.
Yeah.
Man, this has been a fun
Are you
episode.
in another dimension?
Listen, I might be multiplicity right now. There might be like 3 of me interacting right now. I don't even know.
Yeah. You need another one to record your other podcast.
Exactly.
Get some free time.
Honestly, the best part of this entire thing is I'm opening a psychic hotline.
No. Call in now.
At $19.95 an hour or a minute. I'm sorry. I'm doing
minute.
a minute. I almost gave y'all
you're
$19.95.
selling yourself cheap there.
$19.95 a minute. Man, we're going to be able to pay for these podcasts in no time.
Heck yeah.
Man. Well, definitely appreciate everyone stopping by. This has been a fun one for me. This is probably the funnest one we've had so far. I'm super excited.
I had a lot of time too. I feel guilty about leaving so much out, but maybe we'll get another shot.
Maybe get a third shot.
Yeah. It's up to you guys. Up to you guys.
Well, until we see you on the next podcast, goodbye.
Bye-bye.